from Howard
Rude.
Stein Hudson,
But yeah,
who is helping with the oversight for Complete Streets. And we're hoping that perhaps he can help us with all our tracking, all our projects that we're tracking. So, did you get a chance to go over to the site, or should we do that after?
I did go to the site before this meeting.
Mhm.
I think going after maybe depend on the things that we discussed. I didn't realize some of those things had been built, and so I think going over the site might depend on what issues and stuff you have. What my thought was coming in, and probably still the answer, is if you still have questions, concerns with regard to work in the basement, then yeah, I'd like to go to the site. So
Yeah.
go to the
Okay,
basement.
that would be great. Okay, this is an open meeting of the Berlin Historical Commission. It's Friday, May 10th, and it's a bit after 10. 10:03, is that specific enough?
and you're subject to being recorded.
Did you plug it in?
Well, I plugged in the mic, but
Okay,
I'm not seeing the red lights, so.
okay.
We did not get about half of our recording last time, and we didn't know that until I went home, and
Yeah.
so those minutes may be a little sketchier. I tried to, but it would be great if we could test it and find out that's not going to happen again.
Is Brittany here?
No, she's not here. She said she would set it up for us.
Oh, okay.
So
Which
don't
means it
hesitate,
could start
other
at
people, to
some-
jot a
I
few
don't
notes
know.
too, in case I've missed some
Okay.
things, because they
Um,
don't have that crutch.
So, Steve, do you want to say anything before we begin, or have us unfold our projects?
I've looked through the plans that you've sent me. In looking at those plans, I'm gonna say I identified some questions. I did go look at the site and, realize that some of these things were built. I guess we'll go take the projects one by one. If you want me to get started talking about the exterior part, I guess I'd be wondering, when I looked at the plans, just talking about the exterior, the patio and what's connecting over to your garage, I guess it is, the detached garage.
Yep,
Just from reading the plans, I would think that space behind that deck acts almost like a bathtub, fills up with water, and then the water overtops your patio and runs down your ramp and your stairs and that type of stuff. Is that occurring?
You know, before we go too far, though,
Sure.
Al and Paul don't know who this gentleman is,
Yeah.
and we should.
I
kind of
just
in-
introduced him.
I know, but
All right, we'll do it
what his
again.
plan is, what his plan and what he's doing.
Steve Tyler is from Howard Stein Hudson, and he is providing oversight for Complete Streets for the town of Berlin. And we have asked him also to consider providing some oversight for us, because we have projects that are hard for us to coordinate.
So, if I may just add to that, just to give you an idea of my experience. So I've been a consulting engineer for roughly 30 years. I did, during that time, I was highway superintendent in the town of Spencer for 7 years. And so I've had to deal with a lot of these same type of issues on the town level. The town of Spencer has old buildings with stone foundations, water and so forth in the basement. I have a lot of bidding experience. I've done construction oversight and so forth. We are working with the town. We help them get the Complete Streets grant for doing basically the town common triangle, the 3 streets that make that up, including your Woodward Ave. That's the right name, yes. And so because of that, and you're proposing to do some work on a driveway, Robin brought me in to kind of look at it. Understood that you have multiple projects ongoing and you're looking for some type of clerk of the works. I or Howard Stein Hudson may or may not be able to provide that service for you, but I'll certainly advise you, what I think is going to help you go forward. So it's really about me trying to help you today, and not about me trying to get work for myself.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that,
Yeah.
because he was already helping with the Complete Streets project and wanting to make sure everything was interconnected, and we had so many small pieces going on with kind of like the site work and then the drainage coming from 1870 as well as the building work. One of the things that Steve did point out is you do site work at Howard Stein Hudson. It's not so much on the actual building construction itself, it's public works as opposed to if I'm accurately characterizing that, as opposed to horizontal versus vertical construction.
Exactly.
All right, well, thank you for bringing us all up to date on this. We're all on the same page now. So,
You're welcome.
Good.
No problem. So am I still on me?
Yeah, sure.
So basically where I left off is what I described occurring there, that drainage issue, that's one of your drainage issues. I guess basically, that was my observation and wondering if that's an issue. And then from that point, I'm just here to listen, to hear what's going on, what you still need help with. I guess what still needs to be done out of these packages that I have, what's still to be built and what you might be looking for Clerk of the Works for. When we get into those type of questions, I'll ask, certainly why not your structural engineer that did the work for the building, if that's the work that's ongoing, why wouldn't he be your Clerk of the Works? And that's kind of like where my thoughts are at right now, but
Sure.
I've been operating kind of on my own looking at these plans without hearing from you and hearing what
Right.
the issues are.
Our observation, well, the only observation that I have as far as having water come down the hill is the driveway. I mean, there's a gully in the driveway. I haven't seen standing water above, but perhaps others of you have.
The real problem with that is when there's a deluge. Light and moderate rain don't produce any problems. But when there's a deluge, you have the sky's open and you get a 20-minute shower or a 15-minute, 10-minute shower. Then you have a whole bunch of water come down there, and it comes down onto the lawn, so it goes down into the ground and into the cellar. And that's the chief cause of any water in that cellar, is it's from that. And if we could get it so that water would drain off and go to the street or whatever, and not go into the ground, not puddle and go into the ground there, we'd be somewhere.
There's basically a sinkhole.
When you
at
say
the
there, are you
corner
talking
of the
about here?
house.
On the east side.
No, where are,
This- So here's your driveway, that's the ramp.
no, way down here. Other side of the driveway.
Because there's nothing coming in from the west side, is there, Barry?
It's in this area here. It comes down here. It comes right off of the driveway and down here. And when it gets in here, then it goes into the ground and ends up
It's
in.
this building it's going into, okay.
Yeah.
And that's-
Barry, there's nothing going in the west side, is there? We've never
No.
seen,
No,
yeah,
no.
because that's kind of what you said with that platform, with that patio out there.
And there's a desire to pave this parking lot, obviously, but wanting to figure out what the drainage situation is because there's runoff coming down into the courthouse. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And paving the parking lot would make it even worse, because there's going
Well-
to be no way for it to seep in.
Fred's plan for that is to put a berm in here, so that it'll go down the driveway and not come over off of it.
Oh, okay, that's what he had suggested, like back in February.
But if we simply regrade the land there, it's gonna make a lot of difference too.
So maybe use both strategies, are you saying?
Probably, yeah.
You're gonna have a lot of water shooting down that driveway on the Woodward, from a highway department's perspective, they would find that undesirable because you have a potential for sheeting and icing. Have you looked at putting a potential catch basin or something up here and tying in down there?
There is one previous plan which has a couple of catch basins in the parking lot up there, and that they would be tied into the local stormwater line.
Mm-hmm.
That means bringing a line down under the driveway and
Mhm.
across the street to the catch basin across the street, and then it'll go off down out of the area.
Is that something that's being considered?
I'm very hopeful that'll get done, yes.
So is
No.
this a design that's still in progress?
Hmm?
Is this a design that's still in progress? 'Cause I don't see-
This is it's fairly close to the current situation.
Mhm.
We had a more elaborate plan for the parking lot, which we still hope to do one of these days. And if we had that, that included at least dry wells as catch basins, but we also have talked about having it tied into the network, and I have talked with Fred about that too.
So I
The,
have a
the
question.
Austin design plans show drainage remediation. That's the first, those are not, those are.
That's a different
We only have those
subject.
electronically.
So I have a question, because the town, on the warrant, there was an article for repaving the driveway. How would that affect putting in drainage?
Well,
If we repave the driveway?
some of these very things that we've just talked about, and Fred's intention was to put the berm in with that job.
But you wanna make sure there's no runoff going on or any drainage issues that you need to be addressed before you pave, because you don't wanna have to rip up and
Exactly.
Right.
repave.
That's my
Right.
question.
It
because
has to be
doesn't sound-
carefully tracked. There's a lot of little pieces here,
But
and that's
certainly-
why we need good coordination.
But the money that was in that capital thing, it was only basically to pave what's there.
Hmm.
And the drainage and the enlarging of the parking lot is part of a bigger project, and we've got some ARPA funding that's set for it, but
Yeah, because you definitely want to get that done, the drainage done before paving.
there's gonna have to be more money for that before they're done in order to do it.
Yeah, it's only like 17,000 on that, and which is,
Small.
When we opted not to do the parking lot when we did the town hall job, it knocked 100,000 off the job.
Mhm.
So I have to figure that this thing, to do this right, is gonna be up in that realm.
June,
But
I'm
it's
sorry to-
also gonna make the town hall properly handicap accessible, which it's not where that parking lot is not paved now,
Yeah.
so.
I'm sorry to
Yep,
interrupt.
Sure.
This room is reserved at 11 for the digital literacy, program. It was on the calendar, so we can move to 2:18,
Okay.
but I don't know that we'll be done by 11. That also has a camera in there, but I don't know that it's set up to do so.
Well,
I
it-
don't think it's doing anything now, so what difference?
Yeah.
Okay.
It may, yeah, right, and it may be that we want to, be able to show Steve the basements of those buildings by then too.
Okay.
So perhaps we can move along and,
Okay.
Can you tell me what is, this is being recorded auditorily or not?
We
We're
don't-
not getting
There's
any
two
recording?
I don't
Probably
think
not,
so.
but that
We're
doesn't
not
tell me
certain.
anything.
So don't anybody hesitate to jot a few
Yeah.
notes, because I may miss something. There's a
Yeah.
lot coming at us fast,
There is.
yeah. I'm the
Um,
clerk in case you didn't figure that out.
Hancock Associates is civil engineering, has been, has given us a report about what needs to happen. We have that little report, and I've forwarded it to all of you.
But aren't they also gonna do a more detailed,
Yes,
survey of,
yes, there
all
was.
of that stuff in that site?
For some reason, there was a lot of confusion as to who would do actual surveying. They seemed to ignore the fact that Ross didn't have the staffing to complete, the actual topographic work, but they know now. They know now. So,
And we have a little ARPA funding that we're putting toward looking at the 1870 and Bullard, kind of overall comprehensively, that gets very broad. It says 1870 and Bullard site improvements. So, I mean, that really can be anything, but we were looking
That we
at the
need,
drainage
yeah.
first.
yeah.
I think what was worrying me a bit was that we have Ross, we have Hancock, we have TF Moran. There's so many people involved because one person couldn't do all of the work, and wanting to make sure that somehow that all got coordinated
Right.
together.
Right. I communicated with Jacob at Hancock because we hadn't had a revised Phase B, and he apologized for the delay. I also reached out to Tom Lamb and copied Jacob because I want to be reasonably certain that we could do the work at the Bullard House itself without compromising the other drainage issues. So I can read you the reply we have from Tom Lamb. He says, June, safeguarding and shoring the existing foundations during any construction project on the property should be the responsibility of the contractor hired to do the work. Given this, we don't see a structural reason to do one phase before the other. But from a practicality standpoint, addressing the site work first seems to make sense to us. Working in a basement that is less likely to be flooded, to us, seems preferable. You may want to consider waiting on certain parts of the site work if you think it might get damaged later by equipment used for the basement. Ideally, you would hire one contractor to do both portions of the work so that the coordination between phases is done by them internally. That's Tom's, and he is the TF Moran principal engineer that we've been working with.
So tell me one more time, so I'm sure I have it right here. What is the order that he thinks is,
What I'll do,
or jot me a
Janet,
note,
is,
jot me a
yeah,
note, yeah,
yeah.
okay, because
I'll
I'd like
just-
to get that in the minutes, I think that's
Yeah.
important. But
So
I-
is there any comment on this, on his summary?
Well, the idea of doing the outside work before doing the basement makes good sense to me, but
Well, the other thing is that in reaching out to Jacob at Hancock, he asked me to send him the TF Moran drawings so that he could think about perhaps phasing certain
Yeah.
parts of it. So I did send him that, and apparently he has a carpal tunnel issue.
Is this Tom you're talking about now?
No, no, Jacob at Hancock.
Jacob,
Yeah.
okay, got it.
So, that's a possibility for them to, and I'm sure that they can work together. Anything else about this particular thing? It really kind of combines the TF Moran, which is last on the list, and Hancock, and Steve's oversight that might be possible.
I
So,
was just gonna add, June, I think what has been challenging for me as I look at this and try to see if I can be helpful in any way in the process is, you know, the engineers have their own language, their own way of speaking, and I don't speak that language. So, and I don't wanna pretend that I can give you guidance when I can't. So that was my kind of main concern, and just sharing that with the group, and I think I shared that with you last time, that when the engineers make one recommendation, or they say you could do this, or you could do that, I have no way of saying to you, well, that's a better way to go, that's not a better way to go, and I understand also that there's some, disagreement between what some of the engineers have said, and also what some of you folks have looked at and made recommendations to do too. And I wanna figure out the best way to move forward that's cost-effective and addresses those issues, and, I'm looking at it going, I don't have the expertise. And so that's all that I'm
Yeah.
coming from.
sure. No, I think we're all in the same boat, at least the commissioners anyway.
Moran is the engineering firm that has designed stuff to do in the basement. And some of us think that's a bit of overkill. The other firm, Hancock, is doing the outside
The civil
survey.
engineering, yeah,
That's a whole different kettle of fish.
right. But the issue is prioritizing one stage before another, or after another.
I'm used to seeing site work done first, and I don't know, Steve, if that's something that you can speak to at all, but do you stabilize a site before you work on the building, or is it not a set rule? I mean, they kind of went back and forth on
Yes.
it in that email, like, that's not even a clear email to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I found it confusing
Yeah.
myself.
You know, part of the problem is you're putting the whole site work in one thing. It isn't. You got certain things you gotta do. You gotta put the septic in,
Yep.
Yes or no? Put in the bulkhead, yes or no? Because there's no sense in trying to do all the outside, and then people gotta come in later on with big equipment and wreck everything.
That's right.
We're talking, but we're not planning anything. What do you wanna do first? What's the second thing you wanna do? But you just can't keep going back and forth, we're gonna do the site work. No, there's different phases to site work.
Well,
And you gotta decide what you wanna do.
He certainly addresses the fact that we don't want any damage by the equipment we need to use for those things that you've mentioned. I think that, that you're right, obviously, but I didn't mean to exclude those other things. I'm just trying.
So is it the chronology? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Al, do you wanna, tell people here that don't know what you do and let them know, and you too, Paul, I'm sorry, we should have them introduce themselves
And then I'm gonna
to
ask,
get everybody on board with what they've done in their career.
Well, basically, I've been doing plumbing ever since I was 22 years old. Also was a
That's
super.
my goodness, it's almost 20 years now, right?
About 8 years? About 8 years. I was also a super for a company that we did work for the military, did a project in 600 apartments in Connecticut for the military in a year. I was the super on the job. We've done all kinds of big construction and everything. And a lot of the planning, a lot of the designs, of my designs that architects stamped. Like Pleasant Street, when we did the apartments, the elderly housing, we did that project in 4 months, and we were gone for a month. So we did it actually in 3. But all the plumbing, the heating was all my design and stuff like that. So, I mean, construction, it's all I've ever done. And worked all over New England, worked up on Maine, northern Maine, we're on the Indian reservations. We did housing of Calais, Bangor, Bangor, Bath, Brunswick, and we did a couple jobs in Rollinsford. But all of New Hampshire, Vermont, and Connecticut, we worked everywhere.
That's great.
And you are plumbing and gas inspector in Berlin
Oh,
today.
right.
Yes, yes.
Right. Since 1978.
Longevity, it's
Yeah.
good.
We were babies then.
Continuity.
I won't tell you where I was in 1978.
But you've also done a lot of, a lot of large hotels and.
Yeah, we did hotels in Manchester, and Dover. Let's see, where else? Did one in New Jersey.
so Al, when you do those, is it like from head to toe that so you're dealing with the drainage and all that stuff too?
All the stuff, yeah.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Okay,
We
Paul?
took over the job in New Jersey, and I basically straightened out all the problems they had down there. Same thing with some of the other places. We did a hotel in Lowell, we did one in Woburn. We did in Merrimack, New Hampshire, we built a hotel, 120 rooms in 4 months. We're a high-speed company.
I guess.
But one of the big things is planning, and that's the big item. You gotta make a plan and go with it.
Sequence, it needs to be sequenced, that's right.
And
Yeah.
that's why I say you start with one thing, do this, okay, then we go to the other one, then.
Right. We've
Like
had,
you want, just like for an example, you wanna do work in the cellar. You can't get anything out of the cellar. So you gotta make a decision, are you gonna put a bulkhead or a walkway in so we
Right,
can get stuff
well-
out?
we have to just take
Well,
one thing at a time here and then try to sequence it.
Yeah.
Paul is our Board of Health Chair, Paul McKelk.
I've been a construction supervisor, I've worked on construction, equipment operator, dealing in highway construction, drainage. I've remodeled 3 old houses and 2 old commercial buildings. Just kind of a jack of all trades. Dealt with a lot of subcontractors, whether water wiring, plumbing, whatever. I was involved in the demolition industry for 4 or 5 years, and all that is reverse building. If you know how a building is put together, you know how to take it apart.
Yeah.
It's step by step, it's sequences, just like along the lines of what Al's work has been. And none of it's rocket science, none of it. None of this is rocket science.
No.
And seems to me that there, you know, the very first thing that should happen, and I don't know if Paul Wheeler ever got back to you, is get the septic tank in, because he's gonna have to bring in big equipment. But after that, you could be putting in a bulkhead and working on the other end. Those two things are not related at all.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do it one by one. If you get the right company, maybe they can do both, maybe you separate it. But you can get more forward action by taking that approach. The drainage is certainly an issue, but there's a lot of stuff to put in a bulkhead and to clear out that basement. There's a lot of work there, and it's mostly grunt work. It's not a glamorous or technically challenging job. It's really just hard labor. And, you know, there's no reason why that can't begin.
If I can add just a little bright spot, Paul is ready. He's ready to start. Yeah, I don't know, he was a little concerned about the amount of rain we've been getting, whether he would start right now. Now, I know you're trying not to grin, but it's the first time that he has said, yes.
I don't know what I'm ready for. I'm ready to keep advising, but, you know, between financial issue, how we go about bidding and how money is spent, there's either, sorry, but there's either a hindrance or a champion in helping this commission do what they wanna do. And I know there's a lot of technicality in the law that I don't know, but there are, you know, having worked on construction, I've seen things sliced 7 different ways, and it all works, and nobody gets in trouble. It's just about being smart and prudent in your approach. And, you know, like I said, the septic tank should be the first thing. Has Paul Wheeler ever gotten back here with a?
Yes, he
Janet,
did.
Janet
He did.
is,
He did. We're going to pick a time that, when he can start. He
Oh,
said,
good.
he said right now, if the ground is soaking wet, that might not be the time he first wants to start digging, but, we are getting a lot of rain.
So has he figured out?
Do you feel that that's not?
I'm not gonna say nothing.
No, if you feel that that's not necessary, that it's all right if the ground is wet, you need to tell me, because I don't know those things.
Wow. Paul's very careful. Sometimes he's a little too careful. But right now, the ground is not that wet. I mean, we've had a lot of rain, but a lot of it is hard
Yeah,
rain and it's
yeah.
all run off.
I think
In the
I wouldn't be
basement.
surprised to see it start very soon, but I need to talk to him again.
Yeah, so.
we need, I've been advocating for an estimate not to exceed,
Mhm.
because I realize that he can't pin the costs down, you know, in a narrow way.
Did he exclude ledge and things like that in his proposal? He should have.
He has not, well, we have just gotten to the point where he is ready to do the job. And how, the chronology and how he's gonna do it, he has not shared with me.
Yeah.
Has he given you a number?
No. We
I
need,
thought that's something we need from the get-go.
I
we
just-
do need, we do
Yeah, like
need a
about
not to exceed.
3 days ago, I asked him for that, or 2 days ago. So
I
it's
asked-
not like we're
I
not-
asked him for that 3 weeks ago.
You asked him for that?
I said, you guys need a not-to-exceed number to proceed with this.
Yeah.
They're ready to go ahead. And from what I understand, the best way to communicate with Paul is through text,
Yeah, well,
not phone
right,
calls.
through text or through going over to the general store and
You're right,
meeting him.
that's the alternative.
Having
yes.
the-
So we need, your suggestion as to breaking it down in order to come to an estimate.
Well,
Is he, I've never seen a proposal from Paul,
I haven't either.
and I'm a little worried that perhaps that's a reach for him, or?
I wouldn't think so. You know, he did some test digging with Dan Wolf there from Ross. It looked promising,
Right.
but there's no guarantee when you open up the ground what you're gonna run into. So I told him, you know, give you folks a not to exceed, and if you need to, exclude ledge and anything else that is, you're gonna add a big fudge factor for, because you don't know if you're gonna run into it or not. So not to exclude means if you ran into ledge, okay,
It's
he
different.
can't go any further, you guys have to bring in somebody to deal with the ledge. I mean, that's how that works. If you want a firm price, you know, it'll probably be 2 or 3 times what the job's really worth.
Sure.
So,
That's why we asked for
Plus, one
not to
thing you
exceed.
gotta remember about Paul, Paul is very honest.
yeah, he is.
He'll
He's a straight
never
shooter.
overcharge you.
He
Even
has a
if he
good
doesn't give you a
reputation,
price.
yeah. Would it make sense at this point, I don't know, Paul, if it would be, which one of you it would be, or both of you, to sit down with, Paul Wheeler?
Kidnap him and beat him up.
I'll kidnap him, and I'll beat him up, and then you can just talk to him. No, but, I almost feel as though, like there's one person missing from this discussion, and that's Paul. The other Paul, there are too many Pauls.
Yeah, one of the issues with that, Janet, is he might be reticent because neither Al nor I have any authority, okay? Somebody from this commission
Okay,
has to be there and to take the lead on saying yay or nay. We take turns, I guess my approach is advisory, free,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
free
okay.
free advice.
yep,
But
Both of you.
any contractor is not gonna necessarily go to the bank with what we say, because it's not official. That's just the legalese of it all.
Yeah.
So you need to work together.
well, I did ask his opinion on the, what he thought the price should be, you know, because I didn't know anything about that, and I thought it would be interesting. And I haven't, that was last night, I guess, that we did that, and I haven't heard that.
He should be able to give us a price if,
Yeah, in writing.
if the excavation goes well, he should be able to give us a price to put in the tank that was in the plan that came from Ross. And he should be able to give us an estimate on that job, barring that there's too much rock in there for him to put it in. But we also know that there's a chance that we might be looking to put in a ledge tank instead, or some other kind of an alternative, depending on what we find when we dig the hole.
And if you tell him to keep the price of the tank out of the bid, you know, that'll keep the number down, and historical can buy the tank direct, and probably avoid sales tax.
That's
Paul's gonna have to deal with that, or any other contractor would have to
Yeah.
deal with that, so.
Can we split it up that way?
It depends on the overall cost of the project. Are we talking over or under $10,000?
Hopefully under 10.
Under 10, you can pretty much do what they call best business practices, meaning you want to get
Yeah.
somebody who's responsible and a good price. Over, between 10 and 50, you have to get 3 quotes. And typically, if it's anything construction, you're now subject to 149, so now you've got to go into scope of work and advertise it and do all of that. So I was just gonna add, if I could, for just a moment, Paul and I have talked, and that's the regulatory piece that I can help with. That's where my area of expertise lies, and, you know, the Bullard House, I always have to be the skunk at the garden party, if you will, because I have to worry about liability, right? It is a town building on town insurance, so we have to make sure that we do procurement. We have to make sure we do prevailing wage where it's applicable. Where it's not applicable is if you have a sole, I always forget what it's called, sole, proprietor, thank you, I always wanna say practitioner, you know, that doesn't have employees. But there's still, we have to make sure there's the licensure, the insurance, we enter into contracts, make sure that we do those pieces, you know, that are required for smaller work. It's not, there's different rules depending on the size of the project and the cost. So that's where I feel like I can help. The reason I've kind of advocated for, you know, a more comprehensive approach, and sequencing is key, obviously. But I think having someone look at the whole thing and make sure that sequencing is done correctly I think would be helpful. And also, sometimes there's economies of scale if you bring somebody in to look at the site comprehensively and you put the multiple components out together. But I also think there's also times when it's cheaper to do the individual parts themselves. So it's a tough decision to make. So, as I said, you know, I'm happy to help on the regulatory side of things with the procurement and putting things out. But I just wanna make sure we meet all of the laws, you know, on those sides, so.
Lucy, you did at one point come up with a figure from another company as to the cost of a septic tank. Do you remember what that was?
Actually, that was,
It's about $1,000?
yeah, about $1,200 or something like that.
Okay.
That was Wachusett septic,
Okay.
Wachusett concrete. It was about that, for
The tank.
1,500, for a 1,500 gallon tank.
And the install, we think, is running somewhere in the ballpark of,
Does that include the installation?
that's
No.
just the
No,
tank, right?
Just the tank.
Just the tank.
Just the tank.
So if Paul's, Paul Wheeler's not to exceed with some caveats as to ledge and whatever, plus the cost of the tank, which we have
Yeah,
you know, at least a ballpark figure. If it's under 10, then we could buy the tank.
Yep.
Yep.
And the other thing you have to worry about, and you guys know this, and I've said it, is the bid splitting, the
Yeah.
piece of it, and making
Yeah.
sure we're not splitting the work into different parts. But if it's one concentrated thing, like you're doing the septic,
The septic, yeah.
that's fine, you don't have to, you know.
Okay, can I ask a very practical question? Up to now, I've been working with Paul because it was hard to get him to,
Respond.
Communicate.
well, also
Communicate.
to know for sure whether that was something we wanted to take on, you know. But, I think that we're past that and that he's ready to work. But when I don't know, do I just now bow out and we find somebody else sitting around this table who knows what the heck they're doing? Or do I continue to, you know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Well, you know what,
What's
Paul-
the next step?
Paul
What's the-
just said it though, someone
Yeah.
from the commission needs to be
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
You do
So-
need to represent us, yeah.
Yeah, so you're not getting away from this that easy, okay?
Well, I was trying. No,
I
I
know.
think you
You
can
need it in
keep
writing.
working with him to keep him moving, and you seem
Yes.
to have a good
we have a
shot at
relationship,
that.
so, yes, yeah.
And, you know, I can make it a point to be present if we know when we're doing it and that kind of stuff. And we'll consult with our other advisors in that regard, but.
Do you think, I was wondering if Paul, because, you know, we have our hands full with a lot of this stuff. Paul McCall, stand up, please. No, I mean, would you be somebody that I could rely on? And I could be, or you could be the commission member who, but somebody who does this, or has done this, or,
I guess Al would have done this before.
yeah, Al, oh, yeah, Al, water. That would be
Plumbing
Al.
inspector.
Yeah, okay, so, I mean, I don't, and I saw Paul kind of shaking his head, so maybe it's just as well I don't ask him.
Because actually, you have to work with Paul to put, to join the
Yeah.
plumbing in the house
All
with
right.
the plumbing outside.
So if I,
So that would make
if
more
I
sense.
represent the, what do you call it?
Commission.
And this is why I can't do the speaking for these things. And, Al and Paul are willing to,
The nuts and bolts.
yeah. Can we do that, or is that just taking up too much of your time? I mean, we just get together with what, a couple people and,
Well, one of the things I'll say too, if you have Paul do it, you don't have to worry about anything.
yeah.
We'll do
He
it.
has a
He'll-
great
he'll-
reputation.
he'll
It's done
do it
right
yeah.
and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
So, I mean, we're creating our own problems.
Can I- can
We're
I-
asking for trouble,
Right,
yeah.
well,
That's right.
if you hire someone that's local and that does it, and like I
Yeah.
said before, Paul is so honest, it's unbelievable.
And is used to working with the local authorities.
Yeah, right.
So one of
And
us.
he won't do it wrong.
Yeah, so one of us on the commission needs to be involved, is what I'm hearing, right? And I don't mind being that person, but I don't, if Barry wants to be that person, that's fine with me.
If it's a
'cause-
matter of being present and dealing with it on the site and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
I'm happy to take that, as long as I've got a
Yeah.
Can talk
Or
to
we
Alan.
could both,
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
can
there's
talk
no
with-
reason
you
you
know,
can't have.
I think
There's
you
one
should
guy who,
combine forces
calls and talk, we got a problem.
and,
It's
Okay.
just a matter of having
Paul.
somebody with the right hat on, I can put that.
So I need to know who, would Al, because you're into this stuff
Well, if you
anyway?
go through Barry, and then he
How-
thinks there's a
do you
problem,
feel
he
that
can
way, or
call
do you
one of
wanna-
us.
yeah.
I mean, I think I followed what you were saying. I mean,
Yeah.
yourself or Barry, and with the tank, I mean, what dictates the tank is the existing tank in terms of height.
Right.
And that will also, whatever they find in the ground will dictate whether it's a ledge tank or a
Okay.
regular sized tank.
So I'm gonna.
And then Al, you know, because he's gonna connect the building plumbing.
Yeah.
He's almost forced into making it work because these two tanks have to be set up correctly.
Yeah.
And then from the building, Al gets creative if he has to.
Okay, so
We
really the
need to-
two of them need to be involved.
Yeah,
And then one person from the commission,
okay.
and either Barry or me.
Well, you know, one of the big things that you gotta say is, somebody gotta pull the trigger and say, we're gonna do it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
That's the big
Yeah.
item. But we've been talking and talking about it, and nothing gets done.
I know.
yeah, no, we got
You
that
need a-
all right.
You need a quote in writing, and also he needs, anyone who does work on town-owned property, they need to additionally insure the town on their insurance. So you need to make sure you get the proper insurance.
Kristen, could you
I can
make
help you
a
with that.
quick punch list of
What we need,
requirements
I can.
so that the commission has it, and anybody else involved who's talking to contractors, okay, we need this, this, and this.
It-
So
it-
we don't revisit this discussion
Yeah.
anymore.
Right,
Oh, I know.
right.
And it does vary a bit depending on price, but I will
Certainly.
do my best to kind of
So
We
I-
need some
map it
guidelines.
out. Yep.
They need
That's
some
right.
guidelines.
So one question that I have, like
Isn't
if
his-
someone were to come in and not have a license, is it something that the town could do, is grant, cover them temporarily under
It's not advisable.
No.
What, are we talking licenses or insurance?
insurance?
No, definitely not insurance, and licensure not advisable. Because then the town assumes the liability if something
Right,
goes wrong.
no.
But then, let's say you don't have your insurance, you could go out and get a temporary, you're
You
gonna
can-
work on something for a week.
Yeah, you can get insurance. I mean,
Okay.
there's no reason why nobody's working without insurance.
There you go. So
Right.
that's taken care of, we
You
don't have
just,
to worry
if you
about
take a
that.
hammer to anything, you've gotta have insurance,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's to protect the individual as much as us, cause God forbid, like a kid walks on that site and something happens, I mean, you just don't know.
Right.
But there
So
is
if
a resolution to that, so,
Yep.
so that's
Yeah.
good, so that's
Yeah.
part of it.
That's
And
one
that
of the
means, Barry,
frightening
you
things
can't be
from my point.
climbing, you can't be climbing that roof anymore.
He knows, he was
So
told.
if
Yeah.
I were
I don't
going to
even wanna
write down
hear about that.
the list
So
of
OSHA would
steps that
lose
we
their
are
mind.
now going to take, what would they be? Because that's where I think we fall
I think we
apart. is-
better-
I think we can do that outside the meeting.
Yeah, I think we need
Okay.
to move on.
All right, and
Yep.
who's
Yeah,
going
we
to
gotta
help
get
me
outta
do
here.
that?
It's
Yeah, we
not
got-
not my place, but we have Steve sitting here.
Yeah.
We've kinda gone down another road,
Right.
and, maybe we should bounce back to him and pertinent conversations. Sorry to jump in like that.
It's just
but-
that we always leave off just without that, what are the steps? What are we gonna do next? And I understand why we're doing that, and I think it's a good idea.
Written quote,
Written quote,
Written quote.
we need insurance.
written quote to make sure he can
So-
insure the town,
Hey,
Okay.
Kristen,
Very good,
shouldn't we
and
be
now I will
moving
say
out
no
of this
more.
room?
we should.
Yeah.
May I interject on this,
Sure.
septic
We have a
tank here
couple-
for a
Yes,
minute, please?
please.
Yeah, if we have to move room, that's fine. I'll move room.
We got a couple minutes.
So I haven't seen a plan that shows me where this septic tank is, and I'm hearing 1, 2, so
I
I'm not
have
sure how
it,
many
if
septic
you wanna
tanks is,
look.
but the 2, if you share with me, I'll certainly look at it, but it's not gonna.
Well, one of the things you
Go
gotta,
ahead.
gotta understand with the septic, you gotta tie into an existing system.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I don't understand, cause I haven't seen the plan of what you're doing.
Right.
But still, the things I wanna add with regard to the septic tank is, have you done test pits where these tanks are gonna be? It sounds like you
Yes.
might
Yeah, we
have.
did.
Yes.
There was one investigation
We
that,
did an exploratory hole.
So you
But
should
it's
have a
not-
pretty,
It's not
go ahead.
large enough to put the tank in, so we don't, there's so much
Right.
walk around this site that we know you can
Yeah,
find
I
more as
can-
soon
I
as you
can see
dig
that,
3
yeah.
inches that way.
Yeah.
The present tank is in this area here,
Mm.
and the leach field is out here, and we're trying to put an additional tank back in here in order to deal with 2 compartment requirement by the state.
Okay. So, you've answered the question on the test pit, understood you can only, but you did a full depth test pit at one location?
Yes.
You didn't dig a whole side of the tank, which I understand that.
No.
It's a trench.
But you're at least wherever you did, you didn't hit ledge.
That's right.
That's a good sign. So then, the other thing I would say is, so the 10,000, that still is, were they, was the ZBA talking about changing, increasing that 10,000, but it hasn't happened yet?
That was under that, the Empowerment Act that, the state put through. I thought we were still at 10, but.
I only know that I remember that they were proposing to increase that 10,000, but I
that
don't
was in
know
the
that they increased
the
it.
bill that the governor filed, but it hasn't been signed yet.
Then the other part with regard to that 10,000 is that's for one contractor in a given fiscal calendar year, but you can buy the tank separately.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
as a material purchase. You can still have this contractor coordinate the purchase of the tank and bill the town, right? So then you're still buying it separately. And anything I'm saying,
Yep.
Robin, excuse me, Kristen needs to approve.
It's okay. I get Robin, I get Julie, I get it all. It's all good.
It's subject to your chief procurement officer, anything that I say. So that's possibility that, so then your $10,000 you're working with doesn't necessarily include the price of the tank or any materials. But your tank, is your big material. Your PVC pipe is gonna be nominal and stuff like that. But those things could be billed directly to the town and not be part of the $10,000. So that gives you a little bit of leeway to work with.
Yeah.
You would want that price to, certainly what you're describing, it where he has some assumptions, where he doesn't hit ledge, that's a good way to go. But then what is your what-if price if you do hit ledge? So that at least you know that you can or cannot continue with this contractor. And then also, at least have a plan, what if you do hit ledge? That he's at least gonna fill the hole back in, that you're not sitting there with an open hole waiting until you
That's
find
the
someone
problem.
that's gonna be removing ledge. And he might be able to remove some of this ledge if he has like a whole ram piece of equipment and so forth. It really just depends on what the ledge is like, if it's solid granite or if it's something that can be broken up. Generally, if he's a general excavator and he does that type of work regularly, he probably at least has a full ram.
Now, this particular contractor does not, but another contractor in town does have a whole ram.
Gotcha.
And we also have the alternative, there's a company called Atomic Rock Splitting, and they come in and drill holes and hydraulically split rock. I've had it done on my own property, and it's very effective.
I moved out my basement. I
So
can't-
that could be a backup plan that you have in your wing, at least, maybe not at least a whole ram person, that he might be available if you have an issue.
Right.
Or you could have both, kind of lined up, and then but then you also need to have the money lined up,
Yeah.
through your
So that was
town
my
administrator.
question, too.
And that could potentially be
The septic,
multiple $10,000.
One of my
contracts,
problems
right,
is
if you
that,
count on ledge.
as you described some of those alternatives, and the price issues, and the thresholds for money and how you do it, you gotta enter into this thing when you think it's gonna be a smaller job, and it can turn into one of these other things that all of a sudden we gotta, I don't know, we gotta go backtrack and do a different contracting thing, cause it's gonna be, the project's gonna
Well,
get bigger.
well, Paul seemed to indicate in one of our conversations that if the ledge exceeded a certain threshold, and we couldn't use rock splitting, that perhaps we could apply for a variance. Am I correct?
A variance could very well be in the card. The Board of Health is not anxious to put any building out of circulation because of issues. The building's there's a septic system, residentially occupied buildings, we make allowances for, what we look for is the best possible solution for, given the circumstances.
Sure.
And
So Paul, with
So
that
there's
said,
a
could we actually apply for a variance at this point?
No.
No,
You gotta
we
see
have to,
We've gotta do the
Try.
exploratory.
we
And
have
the-
to make
and
a
the other
good
thing
faith
with
effort.
Clearing things up.
Yeah,
That's
let's
With
just
just
that
move
is
across
that
the
we
hall.
have
That,
a very low-use facility.
No, understood, and that's, what I'm saying is the board will look at that, because it's not a residential situation.
No, it's not.
So it'd be easier to make allowances.
no,
I
why
think
so?
that's fine, I got it.
I got this.
I didn't know
Well, yeah.
what I
You
needed.
got this.
How are you guys? I didn't know what I needed.
bring this stuff.
Barry, do you want me to make a second trip, or are you all set? Let me.
I can do
I
the
can take
weight.
the coat.
If you can bring the coat,
Yep,
that'll do
I
it.
got the coat.
I don't wanna leave her with a situation with